Like thousands, if not millions, I went to the Soul Survivor festivals, and the Soul Survivor ministries had a massive impact on my life. And so now, in light of the accusations which have come out about Mike Pilavachi, its pioneer and leader, its pastor, where does that leave us? Was it all just a lie? For those who aren't familiar, Soul Survivor was a Christian festival that ran every single year in the summer. It attracted thousands of young people. Churches from all over the country here in the UK would take their young people, and it's become, I believe as well, in more recent years, global. Soul Survivor is now in other countries as well, and it's had a huge impact on young people who already had a faith, but also young people who had never come into contact with the church and maybe had, for the first time, discovered who Jesus was for themselves. I know that there were those within the inner circle, those that were interns, that were leaders, which have now, some of them have spoken out, and there's a great short documentary that features Matt and Beth Redman, Let There Be Light, which you can watch here on YouTube. And they talk a lot about the impact that it had on those who were involved.
You know, over the years, people would come to us. There was a cycle, there's a pattern of, you know, these precious people coming and going, these young guys coming to live with Mike. They would come to be his intern. They would live in his house, and they were starting to have this same experience, and you could see this playing out in their mental health.
I was 18 when I met Mike Pilavachi. We were in a prayer meeting at Soul Survivor Church, and he singled me out and said that God has a word for you. What God was saying about my character and about some things that may happen in the future. And at the time, that stuff really resonated with me. It really rang true, what he was saying. After that prayer meeting, recognising that I was 18 and that I was an adult, he said, well, let's exchange contacts. He'd love to encourage me. And so we met up in a local Costa in Watford, and it was there that he told me all about the internship at Soul Survivor, which I was aware of, and said that I could come with them to South Africa with the team and then do the internship. I remember feeling at the time really honoured to be opposite Mike Pilavachi. I remember feeling like it was really surreal. This person that I'd grown up from a really young age, seeing on stage, speaking these really powerful words that I considered to be a really godly man. I was now sitting opposite him, and he invited me back to his house, which I didn't at the time think was that odd. I just thought, oh wow, that's amazing. Yeah, go to Mike Pilavachi's house. You got to remember that in that context, Mike, for someone like me, and I think a lot of young people, was a bit of a celebrity. I went back to his house and we had another cup of tea. He told me some stories. We spoke a bit more about the internship, and off I went. Nothing concerning happened. But now that I see these allegations and I see that it's come out that there was, I think one person claimed that there was a conveyor belt of young men, young athletic men, that Mike would promise a prestigious life in ministry. Now, he never promised that to me. He didn't say you'll have a prestigious life in ministry, but I guess when I think about the prophecies and the things that were said and the offer of the internship, that was in my mind. I think, yeah, I do feel called to ministry and to this life, and this feels like, wow, this is how I could make it, or, you know, actually start my ministry. And so there was definitely that. It was definitely, I think I was aware that there was that sort of environment to it. But there's also a wider impact on those who went to the festivals, who listened to the words of Mike Pilavachi, who looked up to Mike and the Soul Survivor ministries. Was any of it real? Because we now know some of it, the person and character that we believed Mike to be wasn't real. And so what about the rest of it? Was that real? There'll be many people that went to Soul Survivor. It's maybe the only contact that they had of the church, and maybe to this day is the only contact. And so I wonder how they're left in light of hearing this news. These accusations, I'm aware, have had on me, and I know on thousands, if not many thousands of young people, and that have now grown into adults, have had a ripple effect and have left many questioning, what does this mean about my experience of Soul Survivor? But more than that, what does this mean about my experience of the church? What does this mean about my experience of God? What does this say about that? This is the place where so much of that stuff happened and where my faith was formed. What does that now say if the leader of all of that wasn't what we thought he was? In the book of John, Jesus tells of how he is the good shepherd. He draws this picture that we are the sheep and that there's a difference between the good shepherd and the hired servant. The hired servant that is there to tend to the sheep isn't the one who lays his life down for the sheep, isn't the good shepherd who speaks with love and mercy and truth. Jesus himself is the good shepherd. And he's the one who doesn't flee, who lays down his life, who stays to protect the sheep. And I genuinely believe that even with everything that's been said and with all of the thoughts whirling through my head about Soul Survivor and Mike Pilavachi and what all of this means for my own faith and my own walk with God, I have to draw back to that scripture that it was never Mike or anyone for that who is the good shepherd. So when that passage says, my sheep know my voice, when I think back to those things that I heard from God, when I think back of those encounters that I had with God through Soul Survivor and at times through the ministry of Mike Pilavachi, I have to conclude that it doesn't take away that what I experienced was not the words of Mike. It wasn't Mike Pilavachi who I was following anyway. It was the Good Shepherd. It was Jesus who knows me and who I got to know as a young person. That's what Soul Survivor did. It enabled so many people to come into God's presence. It enabled so many people to understand the love that God had for them, even in a world that is messy. Psalm 23 says that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we are not alone. It never promises us that we won't walk through darkness, through valleys, through places where we feel lost. What it promises us is that God is with us, is that there is one who is with us even in those times. And so I want to encourage you who may have gone to Soul Survivor, or maybe you were part of something else that let you down, that God is with you even in those dark moments. Just because you feel deceived and feel like perhaps some of it was a lie, or that you don't know what bits you can trust, what you can trust is the Good Shepherd through the valleys and through to green pastures. You've been watching Mr. Priest. Please do subscribe if you'd like to watch some more content that will be coming out. But most of all, may God bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and give you his peace.